Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting up 3 whole kits of hybrid Metamorphs. Ignore the Acolyte hybrid stuff. So this is for my personal army, and here are all the paints and things I use in the process of making these. Before we begin, I would like to point out an interesting thing. So the manual does not show it, but there is a right and left arm essentially. The body receives basically there is a spot where 2 arms will go in and a spot where 1 arm will go in. The manual never makes this distinction, so when you're choosing the arms you have to make sure that you have selected the right type of arm for the right type of body input thing. They don't specify this, they don't make anything like it. I only figured this out after I already cleaned and primed everything, and then I had to rearrange the arms and ligaments to make sure that I had the right arm to go into the right body section. Now before we begin, we're going to magnetize the model. So essentially, there are I'm basically making 3 5-man squads, but it's possible to combine 2 of them together to make a 10-man. And so there'll be a standard bearer in each 5-man, but if I want to make it a 10-man, I need to be able to remove one of the standards. So we're going to magnetize one of the arms. So here are the drill bits I used. Essentially the idea is, so the guys who have a standard will also have their gun. I'm building them as flamers because the rules, it's not worth it to not have flamers. So essentially what I'm going to do is first I'm going to find the very center of where their arm is going to be, and I'm going to use the finest drill bit to drill the initial hole. It doesn't have to be deep, it just has to make a dent. Then I will keep upgrading into further larger drills to cut my way through, and eventually I will go to the final one. And the final big drill is the depth of around just over 2 of the magnets. And then once I've successfully drilled the hole, I will then put super glue into the hole and then shove a magnet in using the back of the drill bit because it's the perfect size to shove it down there. It takes a little bit of practice to get it in, and yeah, always make sure your magnets are pointing in the same direction because their Gene Stealer arms are too small, and so I have to put the magnet on the outside of the arm. I can't drill and put the magnet in the arm, so it has to be outside the arm and has to go into a hole. And this is just a long, complicated process to do 3 models. Alright, so priming. In the interest of saving time over money, I use Mechanicus Standard Gray which will essentially not only be the primer but also the first undercoat, which is the color of the shadows. Then I go straight into painting, which is Pallid Witch Flesh and Pro Acryl White. So what I do is I use an airbrush and I just spray from up above and sometimes from the side to get into their stomach area, but carefully I create the light and dark shadows. And unfortunately some of my footage is lost, and I dry brushed all over all the models the bright white to pick out all the edges. Alright, with Lawman Medium, Administrative Gray, Temple Guard Blue, Calidor Sky, and Slaanesh Gray, we're going to paint base layers. So for speed painting or for troops, I use a lot of speed painting and oil paints to pick up the process. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn each of these 4 paints into a wash, which is basically I add a bunch of Lawman Medium and maybe a little bit of water, but I want these to be a little bit thick. So this takes some practice to get the right ratio right because every paint is different. And basically I apply this as a base coat on every spot I need. So basically Administrative Gray is the armor, Temple Guard Blue is the pants, Calidor Sky is the chitin, and Slaanesh Gray is the skin. Alright, with Lamian Medium, Dawnstone, and Bugman's Glow, we're going to do the same thing again. Dawnstone goes on the guns, Bugman's Glow goes on the leather. Alright, I'm going to try avoiding metals as much as possible, so I'm just going to go with flat colors. So with Blood Angel's Red, Eandon Yellow, and Plague Bear Flesh, I'm going to paint some certain parts. Blood Angel's Red is going to be the fuel tanks on all their flamers, Eandon Yellow is going to be the tip of the flamers, and Plague Bear's Flesh is going to be on the grenades. And that's it. Just quick, simple, done. Alright, with Mineral Spirits, the brand I use is Gamsol, Lamp Black, French Ultramarine, Magenta, and Burnt Umber oil paints, we're going to do oil washes. So basically what I do is in one go, I just mix the Mineral Spirits in with the oil washes and I just apply them where they go. Black goes on the armor or anything gray, blue goes on their arms and their, their pants, but I make sure to add in black to darker. We want to go as dark, essentially as dark as we can a little bit. With magenta, I mix a little black in there and then apply this on all their skin. The brown goes onto their leather and such and such. And I don't show it, but eventually I go back with an even darker black and blue mix to go over their armor, or their, not armor, their chitin armor, or body arms, whatever. And then once that is dried by like maybe an hour or so after it's applied, I then lightly wipe off some of it. Alright, the model's pretty much done at this point, and you can skip all the rest, but this is just me adding details, which is most of the video. So with Pallid Witch Flesh and Calidor Sky mixed, and basically I took Calidor Sky, which is the base color I used, and I applied white to it to make it brighter. I then highlighted all the areas of their armored chitin and stuff, and yeah. So basically focus on the edges first, flat planes, and to make sure the paint is watered down. It's not a glaze, but it's getting close to that. And I just add it to solidify color, and yeah. And now with Slaanesh Grey and Pallid Witch Flesh, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to highlight all the skin, but I'm also going to fill in the, whatever these things are that are on their arms, these pink gaps. So we're going to go super bright. Alright, now with Lamian Medium, we add a little bit of Shyish Purple with some Lamian Medium, and basically what we're going to do is, so those things we did on their arms, we're going to apply it all over and fill it in. The Lamian Medium makes it, how do I put it, flow into the recesses better, equalizes the colors. Also, I forgot to mention that I also painted all the pink flesh with the Slaanesh Grey and the white. And you can also use some of this mix here of Lamian Medium and Shyish Purple to re-add some shadows in some places, like their bottom of their necks or faces and stuff like that. So with Pallid Witch Flesh, Bugman's Glow, and Thondia Brown, we're going to paint the leather. So basically I added Pallid Witch Flesh to the Bugman's Glow and I highlighted all the leather. What I did was the edges, and then I did like cross slashes all throughout. And also, interesting speed tip, I had Thondia Brown already on the palette, and so basically what I did is I wiped the brush and then got a little bit of Thondia Brown and applied shadows like a hard line here or there or on the strips of leather that they have around their legs and stuff. This actually was faster and allowed me to paint a lot more, much faster, just to have these paints just right there ready. Alright, Administrative Gray. Basically just use this to highlight all the armor again. And so with Temple Guard Blue and Pallid Witch Flesh, we're going to do their robes. So one thing I wanted to do with these guys, since they're the elite unit, I wanted their robes to be light blue, as opposed to the regular guys who have bright red robes. So essentially Temple Guard Blue with some Pallid Witch Flesh, and I use this as a flat layer to solidify the flat planes of the robes and stuff. I'm going to feature the Sergeant essentially, but this applies to the few guys with tiny little robes here and there. Then once that's done, I add more Pallid Witch Flesh and I focus on the more raised areas, edges and stuff, and I do more highlighting on the higher planes. Then finally, I add more Pallid Witch Flesh, and so what I do is I started adding texture. So basically first, I did all these sharp lines and edges, then I created like a line around any fold, like their thighs and stuff. I edged the edge around their top of their thigh and stuff, and then what I did was I did tons of horizontal slashes all throughout. This created texture. And then finally with Pallid Witch Flesh in the end, I redo all this again with most raised areas, most raised edges, and then very fine slashes, horizontal slashes throughout. Occasionally vertical slashes on some places, but that's like a artsy feel it if you think it'll work kind of thing. And yeah, and it looks pretty good. Alright, and with Calidor Sky, what we're going to do is we're going to create a wash of this, very thin down, and we're going to apply it all over the cape. So this is going to, if it's too bright, this is a step to help tie the colors together, bring it down a little bit, and add some extra shadow back in. And it works pretty well. Alright, with Averland Sunset, Daemonette Hide, XV88, also Wildwood, Lamian Medium, and Ungor Flesh. Unfortunately, I lost some of the footage where I showed that I use it. But basically, I'm going to do a bunch of small details. First off, Averland Sunset, into the eyes. Some of them have multiple eyes, so just a few touches, make sure it's not watery enough to spread everywhere. And if something bad happens, just use the Lamian Medium Shaiish Purple mix from 4 to refocus all the details. Daemonette Hide is going on to their tongues, whatever variation of it is. Also, I forgot Elysian Green. I also lost the footage of the XV88. So basically, I painted their teeth XV88, but it wasn't bright enough. So then I went with Ungor Flesh and did a thin line of Ungor Flesh on the teeth to bring them out. This was really hard with the very tiny teeth that some of them have. Basically, I overbrushed XV88 and then very lightly with not watery paint at all, overbrushed Ungor flesh on their teeth, and it actually gets to show. Yeah. I then used the Wildwood and Lamian medium mix to add some more color back into the leather. The leather's too bright and pinkish, and so I wanted to add some more depth and color to it. And this Wildwood is a brown. And then lastly, one thing I did notice, I lost the footage of this again, but basically I used Blood Angel Red, very diluted with Lamian medium, and I applied it on their tongues again to add more color to it, but you won't see it. You might notice their color change in a bit. Alright, with Thondia Brown, Mephiston Red, and Troll Slayer Orange, we're going to fix some of the color palette. So everything is too bright and blue. I might have chosen some of the wrong colors. I'll get into that towards the end, maybe, if I remember. But basically, so their claws, their fingernails, toenails, and their weapon claws, Thondia Brown all over. Then with Mephiston Red, watered down, of course, so they can actually have some transition, do the edges of each blade. And I do lines in the claws going out, and so that the tip of the claw is red, and then there's lines going to it from the base. The toenails are just covered in the red towards the second half, and then finally Troll Slayer Orange, highlight the edges, or for the nails, just the tip of it, and for the claws and stuff, the big scissors stuff, the edges of the blades, and a little bit on the tip of each claw, and that's it. Alright, in my attempt to avoid metals, Avalanche Sunset and Eondin Yellow. With this, I will paint the Gene Sealer Cult symbols, which should be a gold, but I'll just do that here. So Avalanche Sunset all over, and then Eondin Yellow on it to add some color to it. Alright, with two paints, here's a 4-step process. So each of the banners have like this tape wrap around them. So what I'm going to do is with Thondia Brown all over this tape thing, then XV88. So the straps are too small to really pick out too detailed, so I'm not going to bother with it. I'm going to vaguely follow them, but I'm just going to paint a strong line throughout it. So I basically paint the top half of each strap or wrap around. Then with Thondia Brown, I turn it into a wash and apply it all over to tone down the XV88 and help flow things and fix any obvious mistakes. Then I go back with XV88 and just put a dot or a strong line again into where it is bright, and it looks good. Alright, with Cabalite Green and Cyberite Green, we're going to paint these green spiky things that are at the top of the banner. So, basically, Cabalite Green all over. Then Cyberite Green on the last third-ish. Then I'm going to do a 1-to-1-ish mix of both paints and paint it in the middle. Then I'm going to go with Cyberite Green and then highlight the edges, the top and bottom, the spikes, and it has this like fuller, sharp edge in the middle kind of thing, and it looks pretty good. Alright, with Dawnstone and Rakarth Flesh, we're going to paint the banners. These are just simple banners, they don't have anything on them it seems. So we're doing a lot with just two colors. So basically Dawnstone all over. Then what I'm going to do is with Rakarth Flesh, I'm going to do hard lines and cover pretty much everything except for the deepest recesses and such, making obvious lines. Now one thing that's important is that Rakarth Flesh is watered down enough that's a little bit translucent, and as I apply layers or like brush on it, like the color gets stronger and stronger, which allows me to have some places have less of this color and some places have more. Then I'm going to go back and make a wash of Dawnstone and apply it all over to tone things down, tie the colors together and such. And then I'm going to go back with Rakarth Flesh and re-highlight all the folds at the top of the banner, and then focus on the large open planes and make sure they're well concentrated with a lot of color so that the wide open flat planes of the banner that are like towards the light are brighter than the rest. Okay, with AK Dark Earth and nothing else because I decided I didn't need it. So basically I used AK like concrete or like asphalt and on the basis, which has been a consistent throughout my Gene Stealer Cult's army, but it got a little old and it got clumpy and it created this really clumpy not flat thing. And then when I added the earth on it, it actually looked pretty good as it is, and I decided not to make it look like regular roads. I just made it look like really broken up, ruined concrete or asphalt and stuff. And I just kept it as is. Yeah, unique enough. Alright, with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish and Anti-Shine Matte Varnish from Army Painter, I combine these together in a 1-to-1 mix and 1 part water. So 1 part Army Painter, 1 part AK, 1 part water, and it creates this thing that allows for some shininess, but not that much, and in between, and it looks good and a little bit glossy. I just like it. And I apply this all over the models. And then once that's done, I then super glue them onto the bases, which takes a long time because since the bases are uneven and flat, it was difficult to perfectly match up the feet to a spot that they would glue onto. Alright, with Vallejo Steel, Eandon Yellow, Retributor Armor, and nothing else because I decided I didn't need it, I'm going to paint, well, unfortunately, metals. So basically my idea was to base coat everything and then use metals as a highlight, like the very tip, to have a little bit of shine at the end. I think I could do better with that. So one thing somehow footage lost is I took Eshin Gray and everything that was going to be metal on their bodies or stuff was going to be painted with Eshin Gray, and then I used the steel to do some crisscross slashes here to make it look like it's all metal. So they have a bunch of vials that are on there. It's going to be Eshin Gray, and then I'm going to paint a highlight of steel to make it look nice. I also use this on the chains and stuff. Also, I dry brush onto their guns so that the edges of it are like this. Then I take Eandon Yellow and I apply it onto the barrel of each of their guns to make it look like a shiny yellowish. I don't know, I can never seem to figure out the guns right. But once that is done, then I take Retributor Armor and I paint a few gold pieces here and there, which, there's some gold little nuggets on their banners. I dry brush it. I basically overbrush or dry brush it on all the Gene Stealer Cult symbols, including the flags. And it looks good. Metal as a highlight seems to pretty decent. And then lastly, with Gryph-hound Orange, I apply this onto their canisters and stuff of their guns just to make it shine well, because it's underdone with some metal, and so this looks good-ish. And then done. First off, I'll mention a few extra things. So I did lose a bunch of footage. I don't even know how. I don't even know how that happens, because it's right there. I imported it. It was right there, and it's like, nah, this is corrupted. Get screwed. And so essentially, so there are a few things. So each of the Gene Stealer Cult guys have a light on their armor. That's just filled with Eandon Yellow. And it looked like a good afterglow, and it worked. And I did this like right after the armor and oil paints were done, so it looked nice. I just kept it. Better than what I could do. Apart from that, the guns still elude me. I can never seem to... I'm going to have to like really study and look up this, because it's really getting annoying that I can't seem to wrap my mind around metals or guns. But yeah... And so maybe I'll have to practice on some spare pieces or something. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so overall, I mean, they look great. I colored the bases so that the 5 squads are distinctly different: black, gray, and dark brown, black, and light brown, or morphing brown. So a few things to note. Rating them. I'm gonna say a solid 8 out of 10, even though I'm leaning a bit more to a 7. The reason why I say that is because, so I have an issue with the colors I chose. I didn't expect them to become this bright, and while I wanted more brighter models because they can like show up on the tabletop better, I think it's too many pieces are bright. I looked back and I figured that actually what I should have done, the armor should have been much darker, like black with gray highlights instead of gray with some black shadows, or bright gray with dark shadows. And their armor, their Tyranid parts basically, be a dark blue and not a light blue. And I think that would look much better overall. Essentially what I'm saying is my overall color choices seem to be weak. Everything is so bright that a few parts of it, if it was darker, would make it look better. The brighter parts would look brighter next to some black or something. But, well, hopefully in the future I'll make a decision. This is one thing that happens when I make my own decisions on colors. I always end up failing the color selection or the overall package. But as infantry line troopers who will die very quickly, well, not that quickly, these guys got 5 up, feel no pains, they're above tabletop standard. They look really good, they're very detailed, they're bright, they're colorful, you can see the detail on them, they're painted to a very high standard. It's mostly because the speed painting thing I did allowed to pick out a lot of the details. And I spent a lot of time going back over things. Like, it's ridiculous how much time I spent on these guys. Like, I could have probably done a Primarch in less time. But it was just solid coloring. It wasn't really decision making. There's a few decisions and mostly just lots of brushwork. But yeah, overall they look great. They're a good 8 out of 10. What could have made them better is maybe their armor being darker, and their arms being darker would have brought it to a 9 for overall color choices and stuff. And then a 10 out of 10 would probably be their weapons, their guns being a bit better, and maybe a few details here and there could have been upped a bit more. But apart from that, that's what I would think for a 10 out of 10. For a line troop, for like centerpiece models or character models, no. These are good, but as centerpiece models or character models, they would be nowhere near that. So yeah, overall, pretty well done. I like what I did. And with this, I have a good solid 2,000 points, somewhat competitive Genestealer Cult army. I should need to pick up a Ridge Runner eventually. But yeah. And yeah, so it'll be a while before my next video comes out. Like, I don't even know if it's going to come out this year. Like, this could be the last video of the year, unless I do like a Happy Christmas video or something. Because the next one is actually going to be Fulgrim, and he's going to take a while. And I have a bunch of other stuff I've been putting off to get this out fast. So yeah. So like the video share if you want to share, comment if you want to comment, and more to come someday, one day. Maybe this year, maybe not. And adios.